Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. I know we've just spoken. I know it seems like only yesterday, because it was yesterday. Some of you may have watched it today. I just thought, do you know what? There's a couple of bits and pieces that have happened kind of over the last 24 hours or so. I thought it would look a bit weird to just leave that video sitting there without this little kind of addendum to it, this little bit extra. There's some in that video that might be a bit out of date already. This is the danger of the transfer market. And also, I might not get a chance to do another video for a few days now. And the stuff that I will say today will be out of date by the time I want to put it into a future video. So I thought, you know what? For the sake of 15 minutes maybe, I can just rattle through these little things that have come up today. We can discuss them. You can tell me all about them in the comments, what you want to talk about, what your thoughts are on them all. And yeah, it's not something I'm always able to do, but I think if I am maybe going forward able to do just these little kind of, toppers, as it were. Is that the right word? I don't know. Just something to kind of just add on the end. It can't be a topper if it's on the end, can it really? But you know what I mean. So first thing, woke up this morning to the news from Japan that I'm going to do it in chronological order, that we had information from Kawasaki Frontale that Kota Takai, essentially they pretty much confirmed his move to Tottenham without naming Tottenham. So this was very early hours for us. If you're not aware by now, looks like around £5 million deal for the 20-year-old Japan international centre-back to come to Tottenham. If you haven't watched the last video, and this is the first one you're seeing this week, please do go and watch it. Not to see this, but because this is not anything anyone needs to see, but more, I did this really interesting Q&A that gave kind of great insight from a Japanese journalist about Takai and everything that he will bring to Spurs, and also a lot of the weaknesses that he has now, and very much being a player for the long term, but with some kind of talents that will be applicable right now. And it's really interesting. So just head back to the last one, and it's in there. So I think where it was, maybe halfway through-ish. But anyway, Kawasaki Frontale put out today in the early hours, I think it was about 4ish in the morning for us. We would like to inform you that Kota Takai will be leaving the team at the end of the activity on Saturday, July the 5th, in order to complete the necessary procedures and preparations for a transfer to an overseas club. We know who they are. This is the big twist right at the end when it's someone else. We will notify you further regarding future plans as soon as they are officially decided. After the match against Kashima Antlers in the 23rd round of the J1 League on Saturday, July the 5th, Kota Takai will be giving a speech to the supporters. In addition, Takai will not be participating in the Fan Appreciation Day on Sunday, July the 6th. So that would suggest that Takai will be heading to Hotspur Way to join up with pre-season, which I think the Spurs players roughly around 5th and the 6th will start kind of being there at Hotspur Way. So I don't think it's suggesting he will be there straight away. I'm intrigued to see kind of if they give him any rest at all, because he is midway through his season right now. Maybe he gets his rest a little bit later. It's going to be a benefit to him. He's going to be quite sharp during pre-season while everyone's still finding their way. So that could be a good little boost for him, kind of why he might not have the rest of his game yet, like others have, in adapting to the Premier League. He might be a little bit sharper and a little bit more switched on and physically ready. So yeah, you'd assume he'll be there then and ready to go on the tour to Hong Kong and South Korea, which is huge for his kind of bonding. And if you listen to the insight I was giving from Japanese expert on him yesterday, it was very much about the fact that he thought it might take a little bit of time for him to adapt, and his English isn't too great, and just kind of becoming and feeling part of the culture, I suppose, within the club and the squad. So, yeah, that I think getting him in as early as possible is no bad thing whatsoever. You're going to see me occasionally looking there, because this is a kind of nightmare. I say nightmare in a very loose context, but the kind of difficulties in reporting in the transfer windows, everything can be out of date within an hour, if that. And that's probably why I'll be doing more of these little ones, just to kind of keep things updated. So that's it, Takai. It looks like that's all nicely going through now, getting towards its conclusion. So we shall, on July 5th, He will be heading over by the sounds of it, or at the end of July the 5th, he'll be heading over. So that's that. What else do we have? Cristian Romero, I awoke to a bit of news about in Argentina, back in his homeland. They were suggesting that a deal had been agreed between Tottenham and Atletico Madrid for his transfer. So it's a bit like, what? But that's not. It's wide of the mark. Let's put it that way. Is the nicest, most polite way of saying it. Yeah, from what I understand, obviously Thomas Frank wants to keep Cristian Romero. He is a terrific defender. Spurs are not willing to let him go. You know, this is a player, I should finish this sentence, not willing to let him go for anything less than a fee worthy of one of the best defenders in the world, in their eyes. You know, this is a guy that's just been named player of the tournament in the Europa League, man of the match in the final of the Europa League, you know, World Cup winner, 2-time Copa America winner, Finalissimo he won as well. Yeah, now Europa League as well. You know, the guy is a winner. He has done it all at a club level, international level. Now he's a trophy winner at a club level as well. And did he win anything at Juventus before he went to Atalanta? I can't remember now. I'm going to have to look it up, aren't I? How annoyingly frustrating. We're going, don't bother looking it up. We can have a look now. I'm looking at it in a really stupid, long-winded way to look at it. I've gone into the wrong kind of web page. No, I don't think he does. I don't believe so. No. So there you go. Breaking news, what you already knew. That's the kind of update you were after, wasn't it? You can tell I'm a bit of a dweeb when it comes to stuff like that. I hate saying anything that's wrong, which is why I double, triple check everything I possibly can. But yeah, you know, you're not going to let someone like that go for the silly kind of figures we've seen said in the media. You know, I've seen like 50, 60 million. It's like, come on. This is one of the best defenders in the world you're getting. He's got 2 years left in his contract as well. This is a guy that Lionel Messi said is one of the best, the best defender in the game, or centre-back. Better centre-back or defender in the game right now, he said. And look, I know Diego Simeone has been very public in saying, of course I want to sign him and everything. But put the money where the mouth is, essentially. You know, Spurs don't really want him to go this year. Thomas Frank doesn't want him to go this year. He wants to build this new look team around him. And look, if Sonny were to leave this season, this summer, Romero is probably going to be the new captain, isn't he? So I would feel a little bit I really would for Thomas Frank if, you know, what was it, 2 years ago, Postecoglou came in as a new manager and he immediately had the Harry Kane situation to deal with straight away. Like, here's this massive chunk we're going to rip out the centre of your team. And, you know, Thomas Frank very much could be in a situation where there's speculation over Sonny and Romero, his captain and vice-captain. It's like not fair, is it really? And look, Romero's situation is a bit different to both Sonny's and of Harry Kane's, because he's got this 2 years left in his contract rather than 12 months. And that gives the power to the club. You know, we saw this with Harry Kane. Everyone was kind of saying, I suppose I've got to sell him. And it was like, well, they never really did until that final year. And it kind of was the only time they were going to get money for him. And look, I'm sure Atletico will say, he had injury issues last season. Romero, you know, started 18 games in the Premier League. But a fair chunk of that was also Postecoglou towards the end, just keeping him for the Europa League and not playing him in the Premier League. He'd have had a higher number of games then. And look, Postecoglou said himself before he left one of his last press conferences, you have to keep this man. You have to keep Romero at the club. You cannot surely let him go, and you've got to keep him for the long term, was pretty much what he said towards the end. And look, we will know if Romero desperately wants to go, because he's not shy in telling us, or telling the media in his homeland anyway. We're going to find out. It will be made very public. You know, he hasn't been shy about speaking about the issues he felt has been at the club. He's criticised kind of decisions made by the hierarchy. We saw obviously his post about Postecoglou just after Thomas Frank had been announced as well. I think for me, I'm most intrigued to see whether he returns on time. That's going to be a big thing. I think a lot of eyes are going to be on, because from what I always understood and took away from last couple of seasons was that Postecoglou, I think, used to give Romero, how do I put this, a fair bit of freedom. You know, they had a great mutual respect for each other. He was a big, huge, important player in the team. You know, Postecoglou said about him that he made others walk that little bit taller when they were alongside him. And I think as part of that, he did give him a little bit more freedom. And I think, from what I understand, Romero would certainly take that. So it'll be interesting to see how that works under this new regime, because, you know, he's going to have to come back. And I know he's not going to feel like he's got anything he needs to prove, but he's got a kind of, there's going to be a respect level, isn't there? And I've always got a sense he respects the club. He might not always agree with things that happen within the club, but I always felt he's kind of had this bit of affection for the club itself, this beautiful club, as he keeps calling it. So I'm intrigued to see whether at the end of this week into the start of next week, whenever his set time is to return, because he was at the internationals, he'll have slightly longer than others. Exactly what happens there. And I think all eyes will be on that and when he comes back. Look, he needs to have these conversations with Thomas Frank as well, because Thomas Frank is going to be a key player key coach technically in all of this, because yes, he's different to Postecoglou, but he's a player's coach. He's got this really infectious personality and positivity about him. You will struggle to find a single player from his coaching career, you know, at Brentford or Brøndby, or going all the way back to kind of Danish FA when he was teaching the young players. You will struggle to find someone who didn't love working with him and really enjoy working with him. And Romero will fit very well into his system. His aggressive style of play fits in that as well. The system will continue to make him look as good as he is as well. And I think if I'm Thomas Frank, of course, you know, I put this out this morning and people are like, well, obviously, of course Thomas Frank wants him. But you never know. Sometimes a manager can come into a situation, and if they feel like a player, regardless of how good they are, doesn't want to be at the club or doesn't want to work for them, they're like, all right, well, we're better off without them. And the fact that he really wants him to be part of things, I think it is slightly more newsy than people think it is. But I get it's kind of a bit, there's a statement the obvious, Captain Obvious thing to it. But yeah, it's we'll see what happens. We shall see what happens with him. I mean, I just think that they can build that defence around him. For me, you know, he's still only 27 years old, just captain Argentina for the first time this month against Chile. And I think there also will be an element of Romero wanting to see an ambition from the club that meets his own. Now, this is what we constantly heard about with Harry Kane. And I think Romero will be no different, because there is Champions League football for him to play next season. There is the kind of elements of a really exciting season at Tottenham for him. And I don't think I'd be surprised if he weren't to get a move. And that's not saying he's desperately pushing for it. I know he said he wants to play in the league, and I'm sure he'd be delighted to link up with his compatriot Simeone at Atletico. But I would be very I'd be surprised if he was absolutely devastated if he couldn't move this summer, because it is a big season at Spurs. And I think at this age in his career, he probably hasn't even reached his peak as a central defender yet. You know, at 27, it's probably the next couple of years is when it could be. So I wouldn't say he's running out of time to kind of achieve other things he wants to achieve or go places he wants to go. But we'll find out. The next few weeks are going to bring that for us. But I do think he'll want to see ambition from the club, because I think it's as crucial, really, that Spurs show a bit of strength here. They can show strength in different ways here. They can show strength by backing Thomas Frank and saying, okay, you know, you want to keep Cristian Romero, we keep Cristian Romero. There you go. There's a sign of our power. Keep him here. He could do that. But I also think a sign of strength and backing is what they also do in the transfer window around keeping Romero, because, you know, he'll be wondering that, you know, if you're going to sack the manager that he clearly had a very strong bond with, and won the first trophy in 17 years and everything, you know, you kind of have to throw everything at the decision. You have to throw everything at the new man to ensure he succeeds. And I think a lot of the people within the club are going to be looking out for that. So, yeah. So let's see what happens with Cristian Romero. What else we got? A little bit on Mohammed Kudus from West Ham. That was the other news that was today. that was one of the ones I wanted to kind of do another little bit, because in the last video I said, and which is again the way that these things work, as of yesterday, I hadn't really heard much about him around kind of from the Tottenham end of things, and kind of people are just around in the game. And today, suddenly, little words and bits and pieces started to come out. And from what I understand, I think a lot of stuff started to come out from the West Ham side of things. And I did a little bit more digging around, and certainly I would say that Kudus he's one of a number of players that Spurs are looking at for this kind of right-wing striker role. Certainly is within a group of players they're looking at. He's a very versatile chap. He can play anywhere across the front line. But I do get the impression a lot of the kind of everything about it is, or a lot of the noise about it is coming out of West Ham. Because West Ham are in this bit of a situation right now where they need to sell players. I don't know if it's for this financial year, the PSR year, because that would make no real sense as that's coming to an end in a couple of hours. I think it's more for next year. They need a big old influx of money coming into the club so that they can then go out and for Graham Potter build a bit of a more of a West Ham akin to what he wants them to be. And there's some suggestions like, does Kudus actually fit the Potter system and everything? So I wonder if it's coming out from that direction. And again, it's not to say that Spurs are not interested. Far from it. He is, like I say, definitely part of a group of players that they are looking at as a potential one for this role. But I do wonder whether West Ham are trying to get a bit of interest out there for him. And is very much their right to do so, to try and get more money in for them. And I know he's got this, reportedly, an £85 million release clause, which is active for the first 10 days of July for Premier League clubs. I don't see Spurs spending anywhere near that sort of money on a player who, let's be honest, had a difficult second season in the Premier League. Came from Ajax, did well in his first season. Second season, more disappointing. Only 5 goals and 4 assists in 35 games. I know some people might argue, well, he was playing in a team that had a tough year, that struggled, but Jared Bowen, who I really like, 14 goals and 10 assists in a similar amount of games. So it's not, some people say Spurs struggled. Brennan Johnson got 18 goals and 7 assists, didn't he, in 51 games. So, yeah, I wouldn't use that as an excuse. But there is certainly a talented player there. I think it's about someone getting the consistency out of him. And if Spurs were to make that move for him, then perhaps Thomas Frank could do that. Excuse me. It would certainly be, as I said in the last video, a rarity, Spurs and West Ham doing any kind of deal. Last deal I think they did was Scott Parker, I think back in 2011. That would have been the last one. So, yeah. Well, another person we'll see. Certainly seems to be on the list. And I suppose we'll see whether Tottenham want to take advantage, I suppose, of West Ham's financial position in the weeks ahead, or whether West Ham are able to kind of drum up a bit of interest from elsewhere. It's a shame they won't sell Bowen. I would take Bowen in a heartbeat. I just really I've always liked him since he was a young player at Hull. I just thought he was terrific then. Gutted Spurs went for Jack Clarke ahead of him instead of him at the time. But hey, it's not up to me. I am not the director of football at Tottenham Hotspur. So that was that about Kudus. So we'll see what comes of that. I forgot to say in the last one about the Reading friendly. If you're not aware, Spurs are playing Reading in a friendly now on July the 19th. It'll be the first official friendly of the summer. They'll probably have a training ground one at some point. I think I kept saying in the videos, I kept hearing something about Reading. And there you go. That was what it was. I forgot to congratulate Archie Gray. Not that he needs to hear that from me, but obviously he's won the European Championships under 21s with England. Didn't participate in the final. Started off kind of getting minutes at the competition at the start, but as it went on, maybe got a bit less and less. But he's a winner again. He's won a Europa League medal, and now he's won a European Championship medal as well. I'm trying to think if he was in the squad the last day. He would have been too young, wouldn't he? Surely, yeah, he would have been too young. But yeah. So brilliant. That's what you want. You want your young players to already feel like winners, to have that winning mentality, to know what it means to get across the finish line. So that's all good stuff. Do you know what? I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, it was just going to be a quick, short update just to top off some of the stuff, make sure that it wasn't dreadfully out of date the last video. Q&A questions you've put in so far have been brilliant. I won't bother you with them right now because this was only meant to be a short video, but I will do them on the next video. There's been some great ones, some really good ones for me to kind of tackle. Put some more under this video if you want. As long as you put a question mark in it, don't forget the question mark. I can kind of use the YouTube Studio to, it kind of presents me everything that is that it thinks is a question, and that's a really easy way of me scrolling through everything. So yeah, get them in, get the question marks in there, and I'll certainly do my best on the next video. But there you go, gonna head off. It's very warm, as you can probably see. My face is probably getting shinier as this goes on. Yeah, let's see what the next couple of days brings. If there is anything major, I will try and jump back on. But yeah, I just want to do this in case you didn't see my articles that went up over the course of today. Some people don't like to read stuff like that. They prefer to hear it in a kind of a audio or video format. So there you go. This was it. Right, time to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.